Spring is the time for wildflowers in WA. What will spring bring to WA property in 2021? Welcome to episode 66 of Property Avenue WA. This is your avenue to property matters, where the focus is just talking West Australian property. I'm Tony Viner, commonly known as TV, and this is Oscar D'Souza. Tonight, our main topic is assessing and exchanging our opinions and what we see is ahead of us when it comes to the WA property market, and particularly officially September the 1st is spring. So that's where we sort of identify spring season. So we've got some thoughts on that, and Oscar's got some stats, so we look forward to that. Of course, our regular segments where Oscar will also review the stats for the WA rental and the sales market. We'll discover some answers, some property questions that we've received during the week. And with those questions, if you've got some questions, please feel welcome to on our live chat line. If you're watching our live stream and not necessarily the podcast, obviously, then you can go via the live chat line. And then we'll discover those answers. We always have a little bit of fun with what's on the notice board. That's a little bit, but a couple of little doozies. We'll do a review of the various property headlines as we do. There's been a lot of different chatter, so we'll have a look at that if we have time. And always, as always, the big grand finale is the NIF question. So we welcome your questions and your comments via our live chat. As I said, you can get access through our Facebook page. And, of course, every Wednesday our podcast comes out through the various channels. So we'd love you to subscribe. We're not really big on marketing. We're not about selling anything. It's just two guys that have a passion about WA property, and we like to think we've got some knowledge. And so that's what we're about. There's nothing about no money-making exercise in it at all. So, OD, welcome. Football, I suppose we could talk about. How are you? How was your week?
Mate, I've had a pretty good week. Just on the back of the weekend, I had my brother-in-law's wedding, which took up all of Saturday, like literally every minute of Saturday. And even though I'm not a drinker these days, as you know, Sunday was a very, very quiet day, and I almost felt hungover, knowing full well that I hadn't been drinking. So I can only put that down to old age, TV. Can't do it the way that I used to be able to, but. Mate, I'm really, really keen to get stuck into today's show because we're going to talk a bit about the future and where the rest of this calendar year is going to go. Spring, as you mentioned, starts next week, and that for WA real estate means the spring selling season. And you ask any real estate agent, there is no busier, there's no more exciting time than the spring selling season. So, and given what we've experienced in the last 12 months, in the real estate market across the board, whether it's sales, whether it's rentals, I can't wait to share with you my thoughts as to what I think will happen over the next 5 or 6 months. It's going to be a really, really big, awesome ride.
Our regular, Jody Bevan, said, "Good evening, gents, but I'll just let JB into a secret. We will not discuss the Cats football last Friday. It's just a distant memory as far as I'm concerned."
I'm pretty sure that JB would like to discuss the Cats.
No, I don't think JB would, just quietly. I just think he would be very happy. We had enough chats between the two of us on Friday night on our little texting. But, yeah, it was very interesting. Hey, listen, just a matter of interest, for those that are watching us on live stream, and there might be one or two, we know there's one because JB's doing it. Though that photo behind me, that was a client of mine who sent that through to me. They are wildflowers known as the wreath plant. And they were sent to me. They're in Pindar, and in Pindar. So for those people that want to know where Pindar is, that's east of Geraldton, and there's an amazing range of wildflowers. And I'm sure there's plenty. I haven't really been that proactive on social media this week, but I'm sure there's plenty of photos about with the wildflowers. And I'm planning to get in the car and take my little princess off, and we'll see if we can't. If we try and get there as ASAP to explore and find a few wildflowers ourselves and get a few photos. So it's always extraordinary. What about you? Are you not into the wildflowers? I noticed the photo of you on the wedding thing.
Yeah, I'm not really a wildflower person. I mean, I'll go if everyone else is going type thing, but it's not really something that I mark on my calendar. But just in terms of questions, mate, yeah, we love having live questions during the live show. So, JB, if you've got any real estate questions, mate, or any of your
We don't have a crystal ball, do we? We don't have a crystal ball.
No, we don't, mate. But so we just use our experience, I guess, in living and breathing real estate day in, day out for many years, to try and work out what we think might happen. So, but it really is anyone's guess. Is that an opportune time, actually, for you to read our disclaimer?
Oh, if you wish. So the general advice disclaimer, the information on this podcast is regarded as general advice. Your personal objectives and needs and financial circumstances were not taken into account when preparing this content. I was watching you. You were looking at me then. I could see. You should obtain and consider the relevant product disclosure statement and financial services guide from a qualified advisor before making any decision to purchase a financial product. Actually, I think that's the wrong disclaimer, but the same goes when it comes to. I've just realised that section. I'm not doing very well, am I? But the same applies when it comes to property. Just to ensure at the end of the day that you obtain independent and professional advice. And don't just take advice based on what you heard around the barbecue.
Yeah, make sure that you just will do whatever you do. Don't listen to us, and then you'll be okay.
Oh, that's a bit harsh. Before, I think it's really important. No better time than we go to the very important segment. Now, you had a little whinge about the little tune I had. So I've had a bit of a dabble over the weekend. What are your thoughts?
My thoughts are I prefer the other one. my thoughts are that they're both pretty bad, but I prefer the other one.
Okay, righto. Well, there you go. I'll keep trying.
Yeah, no, okay. Yeah.
Over to you. You're in charge. Where you go?
Okay, so quickly, mate, I'm going to race through the stats, because the stats are telling the same story week after week, and that is our sales market. We've got massive activity, and our rental market, we still have a very high level of activity, and we've got a shortage in both. We've got a shortage of listings available for buyers to buy. We've got a shortage of listings available for renters to rent. That's basically the story, and it's been that way all year, and it really was that way for a lot of the last 6 months of last year as well. A normal market in Perth is normally 500 to 600 sales a week. That includes houses, units, and land. But since we've bounced out of COVID for the first time early last year, so April, May, we've seen our numbers shoot right up. In fact, they've gone all the way up to 1,000 or 1,050 sales, bearing in mind that 500 to 600 is a normal buoyant market. But over the last 6 months, or basically all this year, TV, they've just maintained their position between 800 to 1,000 sales every single week. And that's a very, very strong market, and it hasn't wavered at all. Even with some of the smaller lockdowns that we've had this year, it really hasn't wavered. There's just been that constant level of activity. So 869 sales in the Perth market in the last 7 days. Listings did spike themselves up to about 9,200 listings, but that's back down to 8,511 listings. So, and just to put that into context, this time last year, when we were just about to start our spring selling season, just on the back of winter, there was 10,804 listings available in Perth. Now, at that time, we also had a very busy market. Like, it was surprising the real estate agents, it was surprising the buyers, it was probably surprising everyone how we've just in WA have bounced out of COVID. So 10,804 listings available 12 months ago, and as at the same week, but now in the current time period, 8,511. So that's a really, really low supply of stock. There's still lots of people going to home opens, lots of offers, multiple offers coming in on many properties, and many properties are achieving more than the asking price. So still a very, very strong market. And I'm going to come back to that in a little bit when we stop talking about stats and we actually start talking about trends as to what we think might happen over the next 4 or 5 months. Rental market again, though, still very, very strong. Another 767 properties leased in the last 7 days. 12 months ago in the same week, 754. So still very, very consistent leasing over there. Supply is back down to 2,539, which is back under 1%. We've been hovering around 1% for a while. We went up just above 1%, but now we're back under at 1%. And this time last year, there was 3,314 properties available for rent in Perth. So today, 2,539, and 12 months ago, 3,314. So what's that? That must be a good 26 or 27% drop compared to where we were at last year. For our Gero friends, that rental market's also been a little bit of a seesaw, I guess, because it dropped down to 42 properties, then it bounced back up to 62, 63 properties. And as at today, if you're looking for a property in Geraldton, a rental property, there's a magic number of 44. So things have tightened up. Things have tightened up again in Geraldton so far as the rental market. So, but that's no new news. Like that is really, that's just been very, very consistent for the rental market, the sales market. But what is new news, I think, is the fact that we're about to go into the spring selling season. What does that normally mean here in Perth or in fact WA? And what will that mean then from now through till the end of the year in terms of sales activity, in terms of prices, and I guess in terms of supply, and what is that going to set us up for in 2022? So look forward to pulling that apart with your TV over the next 40 minutes.
Yep, and I think perhaps we just lead straight into that because, I mean, other than the stats that you've provided there, I mean, as you say, nothing's not really a big change to what we've already been talking about. I mean, there's been fluctuations, but I think logically our main topic for tonight was what's going to happen in the spring season. And I know, I think I did a little post last week of a segment of our podcast last week where I said, hang on to your hats, because that was exactly how you described it come the spring, and hence why not have a good chat about that tonight. And so, yeah, I think you should lead the way. What's your thoughts? I mean, other than hang on to your hats.
Well, look, hang on to your hats, I think is a really good way to open it, because that's exactly what I think is what we're going to see. Over COVID has obviously, we've said it time and time again, it's thrown a complete new light on our real estate market, no matter what stage of the cycle it's at, and no matter what, we've also it's all provided a great deal of surprise for us in terms of how resilient the WA property market has been. We had that very first initial lockdown, and then the second lockdown that did actually impact on the volumes. And I remember actually that first time when COVID first hit, that first week, sales transactions dropped to about 250 transactions for the week. So almost one quarter, definitely 1/3, but almost one quarter of what the figures normally were. But we've now had 18 months worth of experience with COVID. So we've gotten used to it, and we've gotten used to the fact that we're probably going to live with it. We're going to have to just go down the vaccination route. But no matter what, year in, year out, COVID or no COVID, the spring selling season, which is what the term that the real estate agents use here in WA, is by far the most active selling season that we have all year round throughout the 4 seasons. And that starts next week. The really, really critical thing, I think, TV, is over the winter period, which is just about to finish, our sales volumes didn't drop at all. And what we normally see through winter is our sales volumes drop. No lockdown. We don't need any lockdown, but the weather is not conducive to getting out there and buying homes or showing homes. It's not good for gardens. You don't want wet people running through your house. Like, people just slow down, and our market normally slows down during winter. But that has not been seen whatsoever, and especially given the wet winter that July has brought here, particularly down in Perth, our sales volumes have not changed or dropped at all. So what I'm saying, what I'm predicting, this is absolutely what I think is going to happen. For the next 3 months, so September, October, November, and right through to Christmas, really, that for the next 3 or 4 months, I expect that we're going to see a spike, an increase in the volume of transactions. I think that's going to place a further pressure on our listings, and I'm mainly talking about the sales market now. And I think competition for properties is just going to get stronger. So because I know every single year the spring selling season brings out more buyers. There are a few more sellers, but there's definitely more buyers. And given that we've had no slowdown over the last 3 months of winter, I can only see a very, very active sales market throughout the whole of WA from now through till the end of the year. And that also means price growth.
Do you think there'll be something, I was talking to a friend of ours today who's in lockdown in Sydney. And I make a point of ringing her every now and then just to see how she is. And I send messages to different people that are over there that I know. Do you think that not only we talk about the spring season, but do you think people's attitudes are sort of had enough? And are they identifying WA also as a place where there's employment? And we seem to be a little bit fortunate in the scheme of things when it comes to the COVID lockdowns, that people are going, you know what, we're going to have a change of game plan. We're going to identify WA the place to be. Do you think that also could drive things come September?
Well, I know it is. I know it is already, just from the bit of and only a couple of inquiries that have come my way over the course of last week. One was actually a cousin of mine that has basically said they've just had it with Victoria and it's time for them to make a move over west. It's a little bit short-sighted to do it just because of COVID, because eventually Victoria and New South Wales will have that vaccination rate that they're after, and they'll be able to manage COVID and live with COVID a lot better. But if anything, it's a catalyst again that they're sitting there right now, not really loving life, and they're sitting there going, okay, well, what are we doing with our lives? Is this really what we want to be doing, or can we be doing something different? And WA, we've got the weather, we've got the coast, obviously, and there's lots and lots of jobs. So, there's no reason why people wouldn't look at WA. It's the same sort of thing, TV, that when COVID first happened, and we had a bit of an exodus from the city centres out to regional WA, and lots of people moving down south and working remotely, because we learnt how to work remotely a lot better. And then people thought, well, do I need to be in the city? Do I need to be in these hubs or whatever? Or can't I just be working more from home? And we saw a lot of people moving down south, Margaret River, Dunsborough, Busselton, as a permanent place that they were going to go and live. And it's not because they were trying to escape COVID from Perth. It's because COVID was a bit of a catalyst for them to rethink where's life at and how can we do this a bit differently. So, there's definitely people in the eastern states that would look at WA, the safe state, and beyond the reason of COVID, but COVID's probably the catalyst, will probably be wanting to head this way.
I suppose the next thing too, of course, is when the vaccination percentages get up and our borders, both our international borders, obviously there's a lot of, and I don't want to get involved in that because I think there's enough commentary going on, but there's no shortage of commentary going on, and states having a ping at states when it comes to the leaders of the various, our premiers in particular. But when I think what will be also intriguing is when we get to the point, and we've got to learn to live with this eventually. I think it's a no-brainer. I spoke to my son who's in London at the moment. He's been in lockdown and working from home since March last year. He's had his vaccination, and they're still having huge numbers per day or per week or whatever it is. But he's off to France to have a holiday. And
Wow.
they're just learning to live with it. As he said, Dad, we just got to be smart. It's not going to go away. So that's how it is. And I suppose at some point in time, we've got to wake up to that. But my point being, when it comes to property,
Yeah. Well, what's your point?
My point is that when that time comes, when we eventually realise that we cannot be in lockdown forever, and our international borders are open up, I think that's also going to have a massive impact on our property market. And
No question.
I would suggest WA is going to be one of those places that'll be a serious place to be identified.
Yeah, no, 100% agree with you, TB. For the lifestyle reasons that we've already touched on, but we've got a massive mining boom going on here, and I think I might have mentioned last week. Michael Keel, who's a very well-regarded real estate agent in Killer for the last 30 years, went to the.
We'll have to get him back on just quietly. Sorry to interrupt you, but we'll need to get him back on. He'd be
Absolutely.
He'd be good, yeah. I'll leave that to you, okay?
Yeah, thanks. I'll do all the heavy lifting, no worries, mate. And he went to the Diggers and Dealers conference, a mining conference, basically in Kalgoorlie a few weeks back. And he mentioned that the biggest issue that the mining companies have got most definitely is staffing. They've got lots and lots of work on. They've got lots of projects, lots of mines, lots of drilling, lots of rigging, lots of transport. They just don't have the people for it, and they need the people, and they're battling to find the people that they need, because there's no international. There's no people internationally that can come and assist. So in the meantime, what we're seeing is people getting taken from other industries and getting attracted by really, really big salaries and really big remuneration packages up north.
Yeah. Well, I told you last week that I spoke to, while I was in Geraldton. I was in Geraldton last week, and I spoke to the owner of a electrical company, and he had lost 4 staff in a matter of weeks, might have been less than weeks, to mining company, just big dollars, just dollars that he couldn't even go close to competing with, which in turn puts pressure on him to operate his business and keep up with demand. And of course, you've got
that a Geraldton business?
Yes. Yep, but does a lot of not just Geraldton, does a lot in the Midwest region, and beyond. But as he pointed out, people need to understand and be patient. And I don't care whether it's Perth or anywhere. You just, unless you experience it, you need to understand that these people, when you want a tradesperson, or you want someone to come and fix your tap, or you want someone to come and fix your lights or replace whatever it is, you need to understand it's not like it was 18 months ago or 12 months ago or even 2 years ago. It is, you're on the wait list. It's that simple. And these guys these people that are running these businesses, these guys, the tradies that are doing their bit, they are under enormous pressure trying to keep up with what's going on. And that's just a flow-on effect with everything else that's going on. Getting back to the property thing, and we talk about the spring season, do you identify that also being across the board? So is it people downsizing and upsizing, or do you also see what is it like traditionally when it comes to investment? Have we got people out there? Are we going to, with the chats that you have with the different guys around the traps, are they seeing investors coming into the market in a big way?
No, not in a big way. They're seeing like the amount of investor loans have doubled in the last quarter, but it's doubling from a very low base. So it's not like it's not coming back in a big way. We need it to be 4 times the level that we've seen in the last quarter in terms of the lending. So, so look, there are investors around, but the government needs to provide a bit more incentive, I guess, for investors to investors to invest by way of stamp duty relief or capital gains relief, or just some sort of stimulus, because the construction sector's obviously had a pretty massive stimulus. So I think the investor market could use a little bit of a nudge along. But there's still also been lots of investors that have been selling their properties over the last 12 or 18 months, because the market has recovered. And, we had 4 or 5 years there where the market was just going backwards, and that really has switched the mind of investors. They've had enough themselves, and they thought, well, look, if the market's recovered, we can get our money back. Let's just clear off those properties, clear off those investment properties. And most of the time, 4 out of 5 of those investment properties get sold to owner-occupiers and not back to investors, which means only 1 out of 5 of those properties actually come back into the rental market, and hence that further creates the rental crisis that we've had for the best part of 12 months.
Yep.
But, Tevi, actually, just on that, a slight segue, if I can. I just read a bit earlier on today. The Real Estate Institute of WA actually did a survey of its members as to the impact on rent rolls, basically on rental businesses, since the moratorium on rent increases and evictions ended on 28th of March. So they just wanted to say, okay, so since the end of that rent freeze and eviction moratorium, what's actually happened to your business? And I found this pretty interesting. I'm not surprised, but I found it interesting. So key findings from the survey of the Real Estate Institute members, so the businesses, a combined 82% of respondents indicated that they had experienced net losses in their rent roll, which means rental businesses have been getting smaller. For whatever reasons, there's been, and I'll get to what those reasons are, but owners moving back in, people selling their investment properties, but ultimately the size of the rental businesses have been getting smaller. Rentals have been leaving their businesses for some reason. 56% of those experienced losses, 10% or more, which we have characterised as a significant impact. So of the 82% that said, rent rolls have gone backwards, more than half of them actually said they've gone backwards by more than 10%.
Wow.
So, that's a pretty big number. It's a big number. And that it's a big number in terms of the supply of rentals. It's a big number in terms of their cash flow in their business and also the value of their business. The evidence categorically shows that the rent rolls have been hit following the moratorium, and the majority have been hit hard. The survey respondents were also very clear as to the reasons why their rent rolls had been impacted. Most commonly, they found that owners were moving back into their investments. So that's a very common reason why we'd lose a rental from our rent roll.
And that, can I interrupt? Would that be possibly people coming back from overseas and interstate, etc., as well? Is that a possibility?
That's a possibility, but then what also happens is owners move back into their rental properties. So if they've got sons and daughters and family that get kicked out of their own rental properties because people are selling them or moving back in, then what they'll give their rental properties to family members.
Sure. Okay.
As an example. So owners moving back into their own investments. Owners had poor experiences during the moratorium or were wary of tenant favouring legislation. So, and obviously just that moratorium period by itself was highly geared towards favouring tenants and their situation. So we couldn't increase rents and let the market do what the market does. And we couldn't have evictions because it was unfair for those people that were struggling financially. So that was a major cause of concern for landlords. And then the final one, which I just touched on, owners were selling to take advantage of a better sales market, having experienced a flat market for many years. So there's a few reasons, and there's consequences for rent rolls getting smaller. It impacts lots of people and also contributes to a lower supply in the rental market.
Which, when you talk about rental market, something that's obviously you'll be able to touch on. We'll just we've probably covered that topic for as much as we can for now. But the state government's residential rent relief grant. Now we did mention that. Remember, I think I raised this with you. Might have been an episode late last year at one stage, and we didn't even know about this announcement. And it was going to, I think, if my memory, just to let me have a look at my notes, but I think it was going to cease come June. I read a piece whereby landlords and tenants affected by COVID-19 will be eligible for helping hand until December 31. It's now been extended from June.
Yeah.
And that's the state government's residential rent relief grant. Can you just touch on that? What's that? The taxpayers have dished out more than 11.6 million in grants to convince landlords to keep their tenancies, following fears that pandemic hardship would lead to mass evictions in Perth.
Yeah.
Is that still something that's having an impact on people? Because as far as COVID's concerned?
No. I'll come back to the grants in a sec. But in terms of, is there mass evictions of tenants now that the moratorium is finished? Absolutely not. What was very, very clear is that most landlords, practically all landlords, but I'd say most landlords, were actually wanting their tenants to stay in the properties. If the market needed to move up in terms of, or rather the rental price, the weekly rental needed to move up, well, that's just because what has happened in the market. And in most circumstances, the tenants are aware of that and they're prepared to pay, the higher rent, so long as it's reasonable and it's affordable. So, but yeah, across the board, TV, landlords aren't looking to kick tenants out to try and get higher paying tenants in. They want their existing tenants to stay in. And I would have thought 90+% of landlords would have actually been able to achieve that.
Go on, keep going.
Going back to the grants then. So, yeah, they have extended the grants through till the very end of this calendar year. And in particular, I think there's only 2 grants on offer. One of the grants is the $4,000 grant which effectively goes direct to the landlord for rental debt that was accrued prior to the 1st of December last year. So there's it basically means if you've got a debt that's hanging around and you were trying to pay it off, but it's hard to keep up with current rent payments plus pay off a previous debt, you basically can apply for a grant which will go up to the value of $4,000 that can assist in wiping out the entire debt or maybe part of the debt, and that money would go straight through to your landlord. There's conditions and criteria around that. One of those is that it's only going to be paid to the landlord if they offer you a additional lease of 6 months over and above what you're currently committed to. So the landlord's got to do something in order to get that grant. Similarly, there's a further grant that's available, which is definitely to the benefit of the tenant, and that is if a tenant experiences an increased rent that becomes unaffordable for them and they start to struggle or find themselves in financial hardship, there is a grant that they can apply for, which is up to the value of $2,000 that will assist them in paying the higher rent. It's subject to a number of criteria, and one of those criteria is that the landlord must offer them a minimum 6-month lease at that new rent in order for the state government to provide that grant. So there is absolutely some assistance around. It's not overly publicised, and it never has been during this COVID period. It would have really been useful to publicise it a bit more, and therefore much more of the grant that was on offer, particularly late last year, would have actually been taken up. That said, it's a helpful thing for tenants that know about it.
It's a bit like the publicity about this figure's been mentioned again, the $1 billion towards upgrading and expanding our existing social housing stock and other homelessness initiatives. I haven't seen too much about that other than the odd article that you read where it mentions this figure all the time.
Yeah, it mentions a figure, and it mentions the figure, it mentions the budget, but there's no action plan. Well, I haven't seen an action plan.
If there is, I haven't seen anything exactly. Yeah. Hey, I think there's an opportunity. We've got some questions to be answered, so I think we should revert to discover the answers.
Is it a question on Geelong?
We'll worry about this Friday, not last Friday, okay? I must admit.
Who's this Friday?
Geelong versus Port Adelaide. And winner goes in the preliminary final. Loser plays the winner of one of the other games.
Mm.
So there you go. Hey, discover the answers to your property questions. We've received a couple of questions. In fact, last week you may recall, I think it was Jade who asked us a question about how long it's taking for construction to happen in Perth. Oh, yeah. And I made some inquiries with one of my friends, one Casey, and he may mention that it's around about 7 to 8 months. But he said where they've got a bit of an advantage is they are using steel trusses for their roofs, which not everybody does, and that's made a difference to them with regard to their timeframes. And I also asked about supplies, and he expressed the same, that, you know, like everybody, that's becoming an issue. And in fact, I saw there was an article about Australia home building costs going through the roof, and the big issue was the cost of building a home is set to rise, with the Housing Industry Association's chief economist expecting the squeeze on Australia's construction industry to last well into next year. And the biggest issue is a shortage of labour and materials has pushed costs higher, which is nothing new, but it's certainly not going to get any better with it. And I read another article regarding the issues associated with steel, the production of steel in China. So it's certainly creating some pressure. But I just thought I'd respond to a question that was asked last week about building timeframes. Another question we got. Hi, guys. We're buying a property and just want to know what your understanding of GST is. It's not a home we're looking at, but an industrial property. We're being told they think GST would apply. How does that work? Do you want me to answer that, start that off?
If you like. I know the answer, but you go.
Okay, well, no, you go. I think it's important you go, and then I can add to my little bit. Go on.
Okay, so GST is applied to commercial freehold property across the board. The main exemption to having to pay GST is whether or not the property is considered a going concern, and by that I mean the property is leased. So if the property is a going concern and has a lease in place, then typically you are not required to pay GST. But if you are buying a vacant commercial or industrial property, in most cases, just about all cases, GST will be payable.
But of course, again, as our disclaimer mentions, very, very important, as I say to people, because I get quite frustrated when I get a contract that people ask me to review, and there it's got GST if applicable. My point being is, if you're going to list the property or you're going to sell a property, first things first, speak to your accountant and clarify there and then whether GST applies. Don't leave it to someone else to work out. And I think that needs to be addressed at the point of sale, and perhaps needs to be addressed at the time of listing. So that the seller, for example, if you're going to list your property, go and clarify with your accountant so that when you see the real estate agent or whoever it is if you're going to sell it privately, have the information together, and preferably in writing from your accountant to confirm GST does not apply or GST does apply. But very, very important to get independent professional advice when it comes to that. The other thing being is to be very much aware, because I've had this question asked of me with GST on residential properties. Absolutely does not apply to residential property. It's only associated with industrial properties, commercial properties, and can apply in some cases to farming properties if they are not a going concern. So
the other thing being as well, the other thing to be as well, can just further to that, in terms of residential property, every other day mum and dad homes are not required. GST is not required. However, for those that move into any form of development, like building or redeveloping a site into a duplex or a triplex, and dependent upon the way that in which they're set up, they'll be paying GST when they engage a builder to build their properties. And so sometimes there might be a GST. It's an odd situation, but sometimes there might be a GST situation that they need to consider. But you as the buyer should not, if you're buying one of the villas or the units that are actually being built, you should not be charged GST in addition to the purchase price of what you're paying for your unit.
Which gets to me to another point that I get very frustrated about, and there's been a bit of commentary
You're a bit
about
of
the
an
stamp
angry
duty.
man, TV. You're an angry
I'm not
man.
angry. I'm not angry. No, not really. But just some areas that I feel passionate about, and that is particularly stamp duty, which we've discussed many a time on this program. And it's certainly been the Real Estate Institute is pushing that barrow at the moment and seeking reform. But one of the things that always has bothered me is that, and people have questioned me about it when it comes to the settlement process. We've got a statement and, we're paying stamp duty on the GST proportion. Yes, you are. You pay stamp duty on the purchase price plus the GST. And not a lot of people are aware of that. And this is where we talk about reform. This is a classic example where you're paying stamp duty. So you buy the property for $500,000 or $1 million or whatever it may be, and the GST proportion, you're paying stamp duty not on $1 million, but you're paying GST on $1.1 million being the GST proportion. So where we took
paying tax on a tax.
Exactly. And this is where it gets up my nose. And it's always been the fact that you say I'm an angry little man. No, not at all. I just feel the fact that it's disappointing for people out there. I don't care whether you're the everyday Joe Blow or you're a business person. Why is it that we're paying tax on a tax? And that's where we talk about reform. There's a classic part of reform that should be done now. There shouldn't be any thought put into it at all. Stamp duty is stamp duty and GST is GST. They shouldn't be, there shouldn't be a calculation based on purchase price plus GST. It should be purchase price and only purchase price.
You know what, TV, this topic was raised in the first year that we had GST, which goes back 20 years ago. And there hasn't been any movement on it. So
no, because it's the silent one that happens along and it's not impacting on everybody. And so therefore no one jumps up and down about it until it happens to them. You know what I mean? It's one of those things that just goes along slowly because it's not impacting on the majority. And that's the problem.
The other thing being as well is that often it's the case that GST is it's a cash inflow, but then cash outflow, like one cancels out the other. You still have to have the cash initially so that you can pay the tax bill, but overall...
Not stamp duty, though.
Oh, no, not stamp duty. No. Sorry, I'm talking about...
GST?
GST, yeah.
Yeah, no, but what I'm getting at is you don't get that stamp duty back that you pay on that GST proportion. Right?
No.
But don't forget, you're not paying on the GST proportion. You're paying on the aggregate amount. And there's a big difference.
Yeah.
If you're paying stamp duty on 100,000, there's a big difference between paying on 100,000 and paying on 1.1 million.
Yeah.
If you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'll slow down. I'm getting passionate. Hi guys. I was looking at buying an investment property in Perth. What are the things I should consider? And of course, I have read others say, and you guys also, about location. Be interested in your thoughts.
Location, always very important. Always has been very, very important. So location is very important. And most of it does revolve around location, because it's the location in contrast to the city or transport networks or the coast, and that affects the capital value in terms of or capital value growth. You know, what sort of a growth do you expect out of your investment? But often it also relates to the demand for the rental side as well. So if you've got a rental property, if it's going to be an investment property, that means it's going to be a rental property, and that means, are people going to want to live in the area where you're buying your property, that you want your property to have capital growth? So, and absolutely, it is definitely a pretty easy thing to have, where you can have a property that is likely to achieve good capital growth, and then you'll also achieve a good rental income for it as well. One thing to be mindful of is the out-of-pocket costs that you're going to have as the investor, and by that I mean often people will buy units or villas, something like that, as investments. And I'm not saying don't buy them. I'm definitely not saying that. But just consider the additional costs of buying something like that, because no matter what property you buy, you're going to have your rates, you're going to have your built-in insurance, water rates, shire rates, all that sort of stuff. But with strata, when you're buying a unit or a villa or a townhouse, then you're going to have these other things which are called strata levies. And strata levies can be affordable. But then I have seen in some cases strata levies and contributions and these things that are called special levies when big projects need to be done at the bigger complex sites. They can really start to mount up. So you need to, if you're buying a strata property, you really do need to do some digging into what's going on in that strata company and in that complex and what it's going to cost. So yeah, definitely do some homework.
I wrote a couple of notes down when I got this question, and I thought the first thing that, and I've used my own knowledge and experience with regard to this, is establish your budget and ensure that what you, a bit like what you've already said, what you can afford, and be within that. And I think, as we've emphasised before when we talked about rent vesting last week, the fact of taking the emotion out of it all. You're buying an investment property for an investment and for a rental. You're not buying it to live in, so you've got to consider those things. You've already mentioned location, but one of the other things that I have personally used in my investment strategy is identifying locations that perhaps you might be a location that you can't afford, but the locations that surround that particular suburb, for example. So sometimes you find a suburb that's not outside your league a little bit, but it's interesting, some of the suburbs that aren't far away from that particular suburb that may be right up your alley and still achieving what it is you want to achieve. And the other thing that I considered with an investment property was things like where you're going to have, not just for the good season, but also when the downturn times, public transport, schools, shops, universities, cafes, and all those different things that have an impact on not you, but the tenants that you're trying to identify.
Absolutely, TV. Totally agree. So bottom line is that when you're considering, and I think the main thing that you just said in there that rings true, which I didn't mention myself, is take all the emotion out of the equation, because it's an investment, 100% investment-based decision. It's not about whether you and the family are going to live there for a few years. Well, I'm assuming it's not. If it's 100% an investment-based decision, stay focused on the numbers and leave the emotion out of it.
And get that independent advice, get that opinion, get that someone to help you with regard to that. Talk to your accountant, talk to your finance broker or your broker. I've just got a mention here by one who should know. She made mention that levies over $1,000 per quarter in some cases, with swimming pool and lifts, etc. So they are the sort of things, when you mention about a strata property, they're the sort of things you've really got to seriously look into and do your homework, because otherwise that becomes a big impact on what you're doing down the track.
Yeah, and not only that's like just your regular quarterly levies, but you also need to look at the budgets for spending, because there's complexes in Geraldton and in Perth that they've got big capital works programs that need to happen in properties because there's major upgrades or a roof needs to be done or there's some concrete cancer or something like that, and that might be budgeted for 1 or 2 years down the track. So if you come in and buy a unit today and weren't aware that in 12 months' time everyone's going to have to start coughing up an extra $10,000 a year or whatever to contribute to a big fund to fix a concrete cancer problem, and believe me, I've heard of stuff like this before, but you've just gone and bought the unit and weren't aware of that, well, it's a bit of tough luck. You're going to have to cough up that money at the same time that all the other owners have to cough up the money. So none of this is bad news, by the way. All I'm saying is make sure you do your homework before you dive into a strata situation.
Absolutely. Yep. I think this is your favourite segment. The questions are done. Are you good? Are you ready to go?
Are we noticing something?
We are. We're going to notice something. We've been a bit, shall we say, we've been a bit serious for us. We've been very down the line tonight. So I think we need to lighten up a little bit. Are you ready? It's What's on the Noticeboard, Oscar's favourite little thing. Are you happy with that tune? You don't want me to change that at all. I mean,
no,
seriously.
I actually want to hear it again. Have we got an extra 5 seconds?
No, we can't. We don't have time. We're running out of time. So what's on the Noticeboard? One very important thing that has been brought to my attention is a little friend of mine, a young friend of mine. It's his birthday today. So Blakey, happy birthday. I know one thing he's going to do. I hear that was burgers and cake night. That was his treat tonight. So I think Blakey will be 11 or he might be 12.
Is Blakey a grandie?
No, Blakey is one of my staff's sons, and he's a tough little man. And I'll catch up with him when I'm back up to Geraldton, and I'm sure we have chocolate Fridays when I'm in Geraldton. They look forward to Fridays because we have chocolate Friday.
I bet they do.
The other thing that we're having today is, or not today, but I mentioned the Ladies Charity Day Golf, which is now on Wednesday, the 8th of September at Geraldton Golf Club. It's 11:30 a.m. shotgun start. Now, you might say, oh, so what? Well, the beauty about this event, it's always a big event, and a mate of mine who sponsored it, one Dan Cassidy up at the Geraldton Golf Club, but they always have different charities that identify. And this year, the charities is the AFL Rams Community Support Fund, which you may recall is the group of current and past AFL players from Northampton region coming together to raise funds to help support the rebuild of the town and surrounding communities after the devastation of Cyclone Seroja. So really, really important. So get behind that. Lots of prizes and nearest the pins and long drives. But ladies, no matter where you are, if you want to travel far and wide, they always get good numbers. Always a fabulous day. And the other charity they're contributing towards is the Lord Mayor's Distress Relief Fund, which the Lord Mayor's Distress Relief Fund was established in 1961. Did you know that? To provide relief of personal and distress arising from natural disasters occurring within Western Australia. So they are the two charities that the Geraldton Golf Club will be doing their charity day, the Ladies Charity Day golf game on Wednesday, the 8th of September. And I haven't not back out playing golf yet, but can't wait to get back up there and to have a hit because the course is sensational.
How far away are you, mate?
Oh, I've got a check with the physio again I see him every week. He's pretty happy with me. I did lots and lots of heavy exercise yesterday. He stepped it up a bit, and we could be a week or two away. I'll know Saturday. And then you and I can go and have a little hit, I reckon.
Sounds great.
Now, do you know what today is?
Yes.
What? Besides Wednesday, the Tuesday.
Tuesday.
It is.
I don't know. It is.
Oh, come on. I'll tell you.
Your favourite pillow day.
No. It's International Strange Music Day.
Speaking of what's on the notice board.
International Strange Music Day, which is the 24th of August, and it was created by Patrick Grant, who was a New York City musician and composer. And the purpose of the day, do you know what the purpose of the day is? The purpose of the day is just to go out and enjoy and listen to some unfamiliar and bizarre music. The idea is to just pull out all stops and go berserk. So anything a bit weird and a bit different, International Strange Music Day is meant to expand the ear towards new sounds.
Beautiful.
I thought you'd be excited. And
is that what you did today, mate? Did you do a bit of that?
I've had a bit of strange music going on today, yeah. I always reckon strange music was tubular bells. Women's Equality Day is August the 26th. So there you go. August 26th, right, which is a couple of days' time. And,
excellent.
And on Sunday, it was National Sponge Cake Day. National Sponge Cake Day. So I just
would have thought.
I know. My mum.
Where do you get all these dates from, mate?
I explore. Dr. Google. I go out and explore. But I make sure they're legit. I go and check to make sure that what they're there for. But I found that the sponge cake day was interesting because my mum used to make an amazing sponge cake. The dear little love. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's what's on the notice board. That's something. And for those that don't know, if you've got a fete or you've got a school event or you've got a business thing that you want to promote or whatever, anything quirky, anything a bit different, anything a bit strange, whatever the case may be, send it through to us via our Facebook page or whatever, and we'd love to promote it and have a bit of a giggle, have a bit of a laugh. And if it's something serious like the ladies' charity golf day or Blakey's birthday, we're happy to promote that as well. So there you go. I think what we might do, because we're running fast out of time, what about if we go to the property headlines? Because there's a couple of things that I found quite interesting. Would you like to do that?
Yes, love to.
Okay. Brilliant. What I did find interesting, and I thought it was relative to what we've been talking about come spring and the bumper season. Did you see the reference in one of the papers, and I think it was the West Australian, where they made mention about Perth's fastest selling suburbs, the top 10? Did you see that?
Yeah, I think so. I can't remember what suburbs are they.
Number one was Inglewood. And for those that don't live in WA or not sure where Inglewood is, that's probably, what would you describe that as being?
3Ks. Oh, right. Yeah, I would have thought 3 to 4Ks out at north of the city.
Yep. And then
just on the other side of Mount Lawley.
Number 2 is Judana, with a medium selling time of 6 days in the 12 months of July 2021.
Wow.
And it recorded an increase of 8.3% to its medium house sale price in the 12 months.
Yep. Awesome.
And big yours?
It's a great spot, Jundana.
It is. Then there's Wembley, which is sort of west of the city and very, very. So you got Wembley, Floreat, that sort of area. So that's number 3. It's also had a medium selling time of 6 days. House price, medium house sale price is 1.26 million, which is a 23.2% increase compared to the same time last year.
Wow, that's huge, isn't it?
That is massive. So that was, what did I say? That was Wembley. And then what surprised me was Kingsley. So houses in Kingsley were selling, so that's north of the river, as we call it. They were selling in a medium time of 7 days. And here we go. They've actually given us, Kingsley is 18 kilometres north of Perth CBD, and it had 150 house sales during the 12 months of July, and its house price is $635,000, which is 12.4% growth over the past year.
Right.
So there you go. And then number 5 was Myree.
Mm-hmm.
You want to tell us where Myree is?
Myree is where O'Connor is, and just not too far from Fremantle. So it would be from the city. South. It basically is. Huh?
It's south of Perth.
Yeah, southwest.
Southern suburb. Yep.
Yeah.
It's about 10 k's from the CBD.
Yep.
So that's rounding out the top 5. And then after that, you would be, and it's not far from, as you said, not far from Fremantle. So that's 5. Number 6 is Bedford.
Yep.
You're not surprised about that, are you?
Well, tell me about the growth. I'd be interested to hear the growth.
During the 12 months of July, Bedford had a medium selling time of 7 days, and its house sale price increased 6.9% to $678,775 in the 12 months.
Yeah, right. Okay. So I'm not surprised about the growth, but I'm surprised about how quickly houses sell in Bedford.
Yep, me too. 6. So that Bedford, for those that are living outside WA or perhaps in the country, not sure, it's 6 kilometres north of the Perth CBD, and it's
6.
It's actually, Bedford. Yeah.
Oh, I thought it was a bit further than that. I would have thought, comfortably 10.
You're obviously not a runner.
No, I'm obviously not.
And then Heathridge also had a medium selling time of 7 days. The northern suburbs median house sale price is $500,000, making it the most affordable on this list and the only suburb with a median house sale price below Perth. Had a sale price increasing of 13.6% compared to the same time last year. Willetton, also 7 days, had the most sales on this list in the 12 months to July, with 169 and increase of 10% to 750,000. My eldest son lives in, and his wife and the kids live in Willetton, and it's just crazy. Crazy. So that's Willetton. So what was that? That was number 8. And number 9 was Palmyra, which doesn't surprise me. I thought Palmyra might be a bit higher up. It's waiting a medium of 8 days, still not very long, and saw a strong price growth during that time with an increasing of 16.1% to 720,000. And that is also south of Perth.
Yep.
And what did I say? Palmyra. And number 10 was Woodlands, which is rounding out Perth's 10 fastest selling suburbs. 8 days and increasing 25.9%, 1.15 million in the 12 months of July. Massive.
Yeah, I've got a mate of mine who, in fact, an office that I work with, and they sell a lot in Woodlands, and it's a really, really great area, massively sought after. So I'm not surprised at how short a time it takes to sell a house, and to achieve that level of price appreciation in 12 months it's a big number. So I guess I am surprised, but if there was a suburb that you'd pick for it, Woodlands would be the go. It's a really, really great area.
The other thing that really intrigued me, read was I think it was in Monday's West Australian about scams, and it was it might have been Noel Whittaker or one of those property advisors. Jody made mention those Perth suburban medium increases, are they sustainable into the future?
Just depends on how far, like maybe over the next 12 months. Yeah, I would have thought so. But beyond that, I mean, this boom that we've got going on at the moment, at some point in time it can't go on like this forever. So I would have thought, there's probably another 12 months in it. But then after that, I guess it's anyone's guess. But, any double digit figures where you're looking at 12, 15%, and then sometimes 20%. No, typically you don't see those figures being sustainable. If you had a figure of somewhere between 7 and 10%, I think that would be sustainable over a longer term. But into the teens and certainly into the 20s, no, I wouldn't have thought so.
I wouldn't have thought so. So getting back to the other question with regard to, or headline with regard to scams. So he decided that he'd have got a phone call. And long story short, it was a scam, and he was convinced that it wasn't. So this is someone who's in the finance game, who writes a regular piece in the West Australian about finance and investment, written some books, and he just said just showed the show, and they text him a code. I think it was PayPal or whatever it was that they were ringing him about, and then he found that while they were on the phone and sending them these dud codes, they were checking and trying to process them. And then when he went to use his card, his account being closed, then he clicked and realised what had happened. Unfortunately. And I know today I've had 3 text messages that were scams about voicemail. So if we can help anybody, please be on your toes. We've mentioned it before. We'll keep on mentioning it. And there has been articles in the paper as recently as today or yesterday about scams. So please be conscious of it, because there is some serious money, particularly when people are not very, being locked down, busy doing whatever they're doing. We're all busy. Suddenly get a phone call or suddenly get a text, and these texts regarding saying you missed a call, but there's no actual missed call. You open that message, and then what happens is they get into your phone. They then get your passwords and whatever else you may be storing on your phone. So you need to be super, super careful. If we can warn anybody, just one person, please be very conscious of it, because it's happening big time at the moment. Yeah. Hey, that's just about winding up for the day. I think we've covered most things for what we could. We could go on forever. But, of course, we always like to finish
Definitely.
with something special. The if question.
I'd be disappointed. You're right. Today is International Freaky Music Day, isn't it? So
International Strange Music Day. Yep, that's it. There we go. We've got something. Righto. My if question is, if you thought back to when you're a little boy, what is it you remember that your mum made or cooked for you that was just pretty special?
macaroni and cheese.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah?
It was simple, but it was just so cheesy and
And she made
brilliant.
herself? She made
Yes.
herself?
Yeah,
Okay.
definitely. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's the first thing that comes to mind.
And
And also that's when I'm a little boy.
Yeah. And so was that a regular meal? Was it something you'd go, no, I don't want that, but I'll have cheese and mac?
Yeah. I would have thought once, or at least once a fortnight, because my parents were Indian, so we also had a lot of Indian food. But as a real young tacker, I didn't actually like the Indian food. That taste grew on me as I got older, and so as a younger person, I preferred more the Western foods. And Mum made a pretty serious macaroni and cheese.
Never had it. Didn't have it as a kid. But what I do recall with my dear mum was pumpkin scones. Used to love my mother's. Unbelievable, mate. They were to die for. Come home from school and mum would have these big basket with these warm pumpkin scones, slather a bit of butter on them, and man, oh man, they were to die for. And
I don't think I've ever had one, ever.
I'm going to find the recipe and I'm going to post it on I found her old recipe books while I was up in Geraldton last week, and I'm going to look for it, and I'll post it on our Facebook page. There you go.
And on our
mate, we're going to
board.
go. Looked at the time. Be yours?
Put it on the notice board. What's on the notice board?
Put it on the notice board. What a good idea. Mate, we've got to go. Thank you for playing a part, and I hope those people out there buying or selling, whatever you may do when it comes to property, please ensure that you get the right advice. Have fun. Be aware. Be conscious of what you're doing. And please share subscribe to our podcast, which comes out every Wednesday. Or, of course, you can get access to Instagram. We're on Facebook, and we're also on Twitter. So take care. Look forward to seeing you next week. Not sure what we're doing next week because we've both got a bit on, but we'll keep you informed. Take care. See you again next week. I've got to find where are we?
Hey, mate.
Hang on, I'm trying to finish it. Yeah, go on.